Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. Welcome back to the channel. We are back with the breaking news that Everton have been found guilty in breach of Premier League profit and sustainability rules for the 3-year cycle to June 2023. Everton will now again be referred to an independent commission to decide a punishment. Our second breach of Premier League profit and sustainability rules within the last 12 months, and the second time we have been obviously the second time we have been referred to an independent commission, the first of which resulted in a 10 points deduction for the football club. Nottingham Forest have also being referred to an independent commission as they have breached Premier League profit and sustainability rules. Everton have released a statement. They have said Everton Football Club acknowledges the Premier League's decision to refer a breach of profit and sustainability rules for the assessment period ending with the 2022-23 season to an independent Premier League commission. This relates to a period which covers the season 2019, 2020, 2020 to 2021, and 2021 to 2022, and 2022 to 2023. It therefore includes financial periods 19 to 20, 20 to 21, and 21 to 22, for which the club have already received a 10-point sanction. The club is currently appealing that sanction. The Premier League does not have guidelines which prevent a club being sanctioned for alleged breaches in financial periods which have already been subject to punishment, unlike other governing bodies, including the EFL. As a result, and because of the Premier League's new commitment to deal with such matters in season, the club is in a position where it has had no option but to submit a PSR calculation, which remains subject to change pending the outcome of the appeal. The club must now defend another Premier League complaint, which includes the very same financial periods for which it has already been sanctioned before that appeal has even been heard. The club takes the view that this results from a clear deficiency in the Premier League rules. Everton can assure its fans that it will continue to defend its position during the ongoing appeal and, should it be required to do so, at any future commission, and that the impact on supporters will be reflected as part of the process. So, there you go. That is the club's full statement on the situation there, and obviously the full statement from the Premier League and various other journalists that have been reporting it over the last 24 hours or so. The news broke last night after the game against Aston Villa at Goodison Park, and I was humming and hawing last night about sitting down and doing a video or doing a live stream and discussing this, because whilst it wasn't official last night, it was reported by David Ornstein, who of course is one of the top journalists in the country, that Everton are expecting to be found guilty within the next 24 hours. And I sort of sat there and I thought, shall I do a video? Shall I set up a live stream? Shall I talk about this? Shall I talk about what this potentially means for the football club? Shall I talk about how I feel about this? And you know what? I never had the energy. I never had the energy. And I've spoken a lot recently about Everton Football Club and about how the last couple of years have made me feel incredibly deflated. I've spoken about how I feel the corruption within the Premier League, this just being another example of which is slowly but surely killing the game off for me, and I'm not quite sure how long I will continue to watch football or be interested in football. I'll always support Everton. I'll always want Everton to win. I'll always be backing Everton. I'll always try and watch every Everton game that I can watch, but I'm not quite sure how committed I can continue to be in this current circumstance that football is in, because it's just A, unenjoyable, and B, incredibly unfair. But as I said, I didn't have the energy to do it, and in fact I sat there last night with my girlfriend watching a couple of different things on the television and a couple of different things on YouTube, and I felt broken. Now, she might be watching this, so I'm not quite sure I want to admit this, but there was a time when we were having quite a long, in-depth conversation, and I found myself just completely zoning out from what was being said. Even though I'd wanted to hear what was being said and I was interested in what we were talking about, I completely zoned out of what was being said because I couldn't stop thinking about Everton. And it hit me last night for the first time in a long, long time, maybe even ever, but certainly for a couple of years, I just felt destroyed. I felt broken. I felt like I was on the floor. And you might say this is an exaggeration, but emotionally, I felt like I was on the floor, breathless, struggling to get up, and I'd just been volleyed in the head. Now, for anybody that thinks that's dramatic, you clearly don't care as much about Everton Football Club as I do. For any opposition fan that thinks that's dramatic, your football club has clearly never been through what mine has been through in the last couple of years or so. Because the moment I read that news last night, my first thought wasn't, great, let's jump on the channel, let's get talking about this, this will get loads of attention, great, let me go on and rant and rave. Had I have turned the camera on last night, had I have begun a video, had I have begun a live stream, I probably would have just sat here and not said anything. Because, as I said, I am broken. I am absolutely broken. And who knows what this will mean for the future of the football club? Who knows what the punishment will be? Obviously, the last time we were referred to an independent commission after the breach of profit and sustainability, we received a 10-point deduction, of which we're still trying to shift off of our back in terms of getting us back to where we were prior to the 10-point deduction. So who knows what the punishment will be, by the end of the hearing for this independent commission. It may well be another 10-point deduction for the basis that the first breach was a points deduction, so therefore the second breach may be a points deduction. But it feels incredibly unfair when you read and you understand what is going on here. And especially when you see nonsense in the media, like Simon Jordan coming out and spreading false rumours and misinformation, which isn't surprising for somebody employed by a Rupert Murdoch television and radio station. It's not surprising that a Rupert Murdoch station is spreading lies and misinformation. But for him to come out this morning and say Everton haven't overspent by 9 million, they've overspent by 230 million, they deserve what they get, etc., etc., etc. How is it that Everton can be charged again for the same thing they've previously been charged for and were punished for? 2 of the 3 years that are in question in this breach were 2 of the years in question in the previous breach in which we were found guilty for. We've been punished twice for the same thing. And they've not taken any, into consideration that we've already been punished once. They've not taken it into consideration that, since those books were obviously so evidently out of where they needed to be, Everton have done everything they can to try and balance those books, aka selling our best players for cut prices, like Richarlison for £30 million less than what he could have gone for. I.e. not spending any money, really, and having the 3rd best net spend in the entire league over the last 5 years. Only Luton and Brighton have got a better net spend than Everton. And yet, still, they believe that this is fair. And it just, like I said yesterday, it makes this sport more and more unbearable as the days go on. I'm not sitting here screaming and shouting. There's 148 people watching here. I'm sure there's a number of those people that aren't Evertonians, and I'm sure you were expecting me to come on, scream, shout, kick up a fuss, swear, have a go, rant, rave, etc., etc., etc. I just haven't got that in me anymore. I haven't got it in me because, as I said, it gets to a certain point where you just become emotionless to it, almost, because it's happened that many times that you become numb to the pain and numb to the emotion. And for anybody that doesn't know what that visibly looks like, either take a second to look at my face or go and look at Dominic Calvert-Lewin's face when he was sent off against Crystal Palace and he was awaiting the VAR check. He looked numb to it. And that is exactly how I feel now. I just feel like no matter what Everton do, no matter where Everton are, no matter how Everton run themselves, the Premier League will always try and make a mockery of us and will always try and make an example of us. And I'm not in any way, shape or form defending Everton Football Club, by the way. I've said this numerous times before, and if you've watched this channel at any point over the last 3 years, you will know that I have often sat down and spoke about how disgustingly, disgracefully, dreadfully ran this football club has been over the course of the last 5 or 6 years. Farhad Moshiri is by far and wide the worst thing to ever happen to Everton Football Club, without a shadow of a doubt. And we can talk about Denise Barrett-Baxendale, who is responsible. We can talk about Bill Kenwright, who is responsible. But ultimately, there's a fella there who's overseen all of this, who could have made the decision on Bill Kenwright years ago when we all knew it was time for him to be moved on and have no decision-making, power within the football club. But he didn't. He allowed it to continue. We all knew Denise Barrett-Baxendale was never good enough or capable enough of running a Premier League football club, and yet it was allowed to continue. So let's not get this twisted. This football club has been run absolutely media. They're absolute dickheads as well. Anyway, it's getting to the point now where my missus and her family, who are staunch Liverpool fans, dad's a season ticket holder and has been a season ticket holder for years, we'll be walking down the beach in New Brighton or wherever it might be, and we'll see the new stadium in its best form from across the water. By the way, I live in Walton, for anybody saying, he doesn't even go to the game. Mrs.'s family live over the water. The best view you could get of the brand new stadium, looking amazing on the banks of the Royal Blue Mersey, etc., etc., etc. And they all look at it all the time and say, wow, it looks unbelievable, doesn't it? Me missus is constantly turning around to me saying, that's amazing, that, isn't it? Look at how amazing that is. Look at how brilliant that's going to be. And every time we have the conversation, whether it be with her or whether it be with her family, I don't feel any form of excitement whatsoever. I don't feel any form of joy whatsoever. I don't feel any form of pride or of, as I said, enjoyment from it. I just look at it and think, it's like a burden. And the reason for that is ultimately because Everton are being punished for building that new stadium. Everton are being referred to an independent commission for the second time within the space of 2 years because we've overspent. A large amount of that overspending has been on that new stadium. You only have to go and look at Everton's net spend over the last 5 years on transfers to know that it's got nothing to do with transfers. This breach has got nothing to do with transfers for Everton Football Club. It can't do. It can't do because we've made money, I think, 3 of the last 5 years. And as I said, we are third bottom of the net spend table in the Premier League, behind only Luton and Brighton. Barely spent a penny, and what we have spent, we've made back on Anthony Gordon and Richarlison and whoever else has left the football club for large amounts of money. And yet we're being punished. I just can't get my head around it. I really, really can't get my head around it. But as I said, those people that are responsible for running this football club into the ground whilst coming out in the media and making up lies, malicious lies about the fans, and coming out in the media and labelling people some of the best in the world at what they do, and coming out in the media and saying things like, other Premier League clubs think, what would Everton do in this situation? They have proven, a lot of them have proven that they are nothing but egotistical clowns who never knew what they were doing, and like to try and say that they knew what they were doing is almost to try and prove to themselves that they were capable of doing the job, when in actuality they weren't. But that being said, I can't help but feel once again the Premier League's rules and the Premier League's format is flawed. And we all know FFP and profit and sustain, or whatever made up phrases they want. I absolutely love these made up phrases that they use. FFP, profit and sustainability, clear and obvious errors. They're just made up nonsense statements that don't mean anything. And that's what these people are doing. They're making these statements up. They're giving them a meaning. But really, they don't mean anything because they don't make any sense. And then what they're able to do is they're able to change the meaning depending on what suits them and what doesn't suit them. Profit and sustainability. So, okay, we all know profit and sustainability was brought in, and FFP was brought in to stop clubs from being able to reach those clubs at the top. It was brought in to help clubs like Manchester United, like Liverpool, like Manchester City, like Arsenal, and like Chelsea to always ensure that they are at those top, top places in the table, and everybody else is just basically filler. That's all the rest of the Premier League is, by the way, and it makes me cry with laughter when I see people saying it's the best league in the world, it's the most entertaining league in the world. How can it be the best team in the world? How can it be the best league in the world when the owners of the league see 13 or 14 of the 20 teams as just being there to be beaten every week by the rest of the teams? It's nonsense. It was brought in so that teams like Everton, with rich owners in 2014, and I'm not defending Everton because we've wasted a ridiculous amount of money on a numerous amount of terrible players, but it was brought in for teams like Everton, teams like Newcastle now, teams like Aston Villa, to not be able to reach your Manchester Cities and your Liverpools and your Arsenals. Remember Richard Scudamore, who was the CEO of the Premier League, I believe, before Richard Masters. Remember, he come out in an interview after he'd left the Premier League and said effectively words to the point of it was a disaster when Manchester United finished 7th because of how much money the Premier League lost. And almost said to the words to the like of, we really need Manchester United and teams like that to finish in the top 4 because that's what brings us much money in. And once you start looking at the Premier League as a business, as opposed to a fair competition, fair sporting competition, you will start to see this more and more. The Premier League isn't ran with the objective that every season at the beginning of August, it's a free hit. Anyone can win the league. Anyone can go out and bring in good players as long as your owners have got the facility to do so. Anyone can go and build a new stadium. Anyone can compete with anyone. If Sheffield United get taken over by a wealthy owner, they can go and build a brand new stadium. They can get some good players and they can go and compete for those European places. That's not what the Premier League wants. The Premier League want Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City and Tottenham to be able to do that, and everybody else to just be able to survive. Sustainability. It's all about sustainability, profit and sustainability. A football club in Everton who began the season, with a bit of a struggle, started to get into some good form, did well, picked up a couple of good results, got ourselves out the relegation battle, and to the point where we were looking, thinking, right, we're going to be okay this season, on the brink of, moving into a brand new stadium, which will bring the club millions and millions and millions more in revenue than what they're already earning, which will bring the city of Liverpool thousands of jobs and much more money than what it is currently earning now, which will give the Premier League a shiny new stadium to be able to advertise when they're advertising their league to, people like Sky and BT for hundreds of millions of pounds. It'll give the country a brand new shiny stadium to advertise when it's going for bids for Euros and for World Cups. And yet, we've been charged once already this season with a 10-point deduction, which is effectively a double punishment because we've also lost the money that we would have had for those places. So if we finish 17th now and we would have finished 12th, let's say, without the points deduction, the one that we've currently got, then we've lost all of that money on those places. But we're then being charged again, despite the fact that it's the same 2 years in question for the previous charge. And we could get another points deduction, meaning we could get relegated. And if we get relegated, we're on the brink already of a change of ownership. And our new owners are under all sorts of different, financial situations. So if that falls through, there is a huge possibility that this football club go into administration. A huge possibility. It's not me being dramatic. It's not me saying it to get views or clicks or to try and get people to, to engage. It's a huge possibility that Everton could go into administration if we have another significant points deduction. Everton have released their statement on social media now, the one that I've just read out before. So, explain to me, what is sustainable about that? What is sustainable about a football club trying to build a new stadium in order to earn itself more money? The Premier League say you can't spend as much as Man United and Liverpool and Arsenal because you don't earn as much. So Everton say, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to try and build a brand new stadium to increase our earnings, increase our revenue, and therefore allow us to spend a little bit more money. And the Premier League go, oh no, you can't build a new stadium off your own back with your own money. No, that's a breach of sustainability. That isn't sustainable. It's not sustainable for you to build a new stadium to make more money to try and compete with those teams at the top. That isn't sustainable. The only reason it's not sustainable, Richard Masters, you absolute clown, is because you want those teams to be at the top of the league every single year because it makes you the most money. You don't want Everton, you don't want Newcastle, you don't want Aston Villa, you don't want Brighton, you don't want any of those teams to even have a glimpse of an opportunity to finish in that top four. Look at any of the social media posts that the Premier League are posting now about Aston Villa being in and around the top four and doing really well. Their posts are quite evidently, you can tell that they're absolutely hating it. They're hating it. Hence why Villa have been told if they want to spend any more money, they're going to have to sell one of their key players. They can't spend any more money. Hence why Newcastle have been told you've got no money to spend. If you want to spend more money, you're going to have to sell one of your big players. But I guarantee you, Chelsea will be allowed to spend hundreds of millions of pounds this window. And if Man United want to spend hundreds of millions of pounds, they'll be able to as well. Why? Why can Chelsea do it after spending $1 billion, but Newcastle can't, or Villa can't, or Everton can't build a stadium, but Spurs are allowed to build a stadium with no issue whatsoever? It's nonsense, and as I said, I always go back to the human sort of the human comparison to what's going on, because the rules are incredibly difficult to understand. They don't make any sense whatsoever, and they are a nonsense. So I always go back to the human element of this in order to try and just understand it a little bit more, and maybe help other people understand it a little bit more. So my sort of comparison when Everton were initially hit with a 10-point deduction was that Everton had been, it's almost like you were walking your dog in the local park, your dog had a shite on the pavement, you looked at the shite and you thought, I can't really be arsed picking that up, I'll go on. You were caught by the police come over and they go, you didn't pick that dog shite up, and you go, oh yeah, I know, I was wrong, I was in a rush, it was a bit cold, I admit it, fair enough. Expecting maybe a little slap on the wrist, maybe a £20 fine, maybe a warning, and the policeman goes, right, that's it, life imprisonment in a maximum security prison, you'll never see the light of day again. Tell me now, for the people in the comments, Paul, rules are rules, period. Is that fair? Is that fair? Would you say that's fair for somebody to be arrested and put in prison for life for not picking a bit of dog poo up? Now, what's happened today is that policeman has come back and gone, remember that dog poo that you didn't pick up and you got life in prison for? Well, now you're going to get the death penalty for. Whilst Chelsea can go and do whatever they want, commit whatever crime, or City can go and do whatever they want. And yet people still, I haven't got a dog, by the way, so that wasn't me speaking out of experience, but people still believe that this is fair, and that the rules are fair, and that the rules a reflection of a fair, sustainable league that want everything to be, as competitive as possible. They don't. They don't. If Aston Villa won the league this season, Richard Masters in the Premier League would be absolutely gutted, because that doesn't make them any money. Doesn't make them any money. They're already fuming that Man United and Chelsea aren't guaranteed straight into the top four because of how much money those two teams bring. So they allow them to spend as much money as they want in as little time as they want in order to try and get back to that top position, because they make the most money for the league. Everton don't make the most money for the league, so we'll make an example out of them. Not to mention the fact that the rules are getting changed in August anyway. So when teams like Manchester City and Chelsea are put in front of a commission, the rules will have changed. So we are in a situation where Everton could be found guilty twice and have two separate points deductions for the same crime, all in a period of 18 months. And then the rule gets changed when it comes to trying to investigate other clubs. How? Just think about that. Think about that in your own minds and tell me how that is in any way, shape or form fair. Financial fair play, profit and sustainability. There's nothing sustainable about it, and there's nothing fair about it. And yes, as I've just said, the board, not the current board, obviously, the previous board, the chairman, the owner, they have to take responsibility because they have put us in this position. How Farhad Mashiri is a billionaire, I will never, ever, ever know. I will never, ever, ever know, because he must be the most idiotic billionaire I've ever come across in my life. He's an accountant, by the way. Imagine he was a decent accountant. Imagine how much fucking money he'd have if he was a decent accountant. If he's that shit of an accountant and he's a billionaire. It's nonsense. And whilst I appreciate and I understand that the board and the previous ownership ultimately are responsible for the situation that we're in, I get that completely. And you will never, ever, ever find me on this channel, defending the board. The previous board, by the way, not this current board, which is made up of about two people and a fella that makes the coffee. Not this current board, the previous board. You will never, ever, ever, ever find me defending them. Paul, do me a favour. Tell me who you support, mate. Tell me who you support. Just tell me who you support in the comments. I'll be interested to know. You'll never find me defending that board or the owner or the chairman or anybody, because they are responsible for destroying the football club that I fell in love with. And not only do I now feel that I'm not quite sure, I'm just not quite sure I'll ever get back to that pure emotion and love, because of various different things, this being one of them, the VAR situations being another one. I'm just not sure I'll get back to that. It breaks my heart, and it absolutely destroys me, the thought that I could live in a world where Everton Football Club ceased to exist, where I don't go and watch. Because we can all sit here and talk about being relegated. Let's be honest now, there's 129 people watching. I'm sure a lot of those people are Evertonians. Is anybody asked about Everton going down to the Championship? For the pure reason of us going down to the Championship, by the way, not financially or losing any players, for the pure reason of us playing football against fucking Preston and Plymouth and whoever else it might be. Is anybody asked about that? Because I'm not asked who we play next year. I don't care. At this point, I've seen a really, really good tweet before, and it said something along the lines of, at this point, it wouldn't be relegation, it would be removal. And if Everton are to receive another points deduction, then, and we do go down, then I won't feel like Everton have been relegated. Because it won't be fair, will it? It won't have been a fair go. It won't have been a fair situation. We'll have been, punished twice for the same thing, and even being punished once for it is a nonsense. So it won't bother me playing Plymouth next year or Bristol or whoever else it might be and playing 78 games in the Championship. What'll bother me is the fact that this football club financially can't afford to go down to the Championship. They can't afford to be paying players 80, 90, £100,000 a week to sit on the bench whilst being in the Championship, because it will put us in serious, serious trouble. And in that circumstance, administration is a very, 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 very possible outcome. A very possible outcome. And as I said, the thought of living a life in a world where Everton don't exist is my main concern at this point. And that's how broken I've become. And that's how far this has taken me. 2 years ago, I was only worried about Everton going down. I was worried about Everton going down. I was worried about Everton being relegated. I was worried about what that would mean for our reputation, etc., etc., etc. Now, I couldn't give a fuck about our reputation. I couldn't give a fuck about if we had to play in the Championship next season. I'm at this point now where I'm genuinely worried that this football club will just cease to exist. And that, for me, is absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And that just tells you how bad of a couple of years we've had. Less than 4 years ago, we were worrying about whether or not we were going to finish in a European place. Less than 4 years ago, we were worrying about whether or not we were going to finish in a European position under Carlo Ancelotti. 4 years later, and we're wondering whether or not our football club will exist in the next 12 months. And I know that might sound dramatic and that might sound over the top, and it could be very possible that Everton get a points deduction again, go down, get rid of a load of players, somebody else comes in to own the football club, we stabilise it, and we've just got to rebuild in the Championship. And as I said, for me, I'm at this point now where if you were to offer me that and say you can either have that, Cam, or you can leave it up to fate, I'd probably snatch your hand off for that, to be honest, because, as I said, the way this football club is being ran, mixed with the quite clear disdain for us by the league and the quite clear want from the league to have us relegated and to have us removed, is incredibly worrying. And as I said to you at the start of this team, I'm not screaming, I'm not shouting, I'm not swearing, I'm not angry, I'm not absolutely furious, I'm not fuming, I'm not going to go on Twitter and write 750 tweets about how disgraced I am. I am broken. I am broken from my toes to my fucking hairline with everything that we've been put through in this last few years. And this again today, it's just another, as I said, it's like I'm lying on the floor, struggling to get up, struggling to breathe, struggling to continue, and somebody's just come up and volleyed me in the head. That honestly is how I feel. Yeah. We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. Peter's got a great question, great comment. He says, question for everyone. Is the Premier League a sporting institution or a business institution? Well, it's a business institution, isn't it? Because it's already proven before that it's made up words and it's made up phrases and it's made up rules and not actually to benefit the sporting factor, they're to benefit the business factor. And I don't know how so many fans are oblivious to this and so many people are oblivious to this. Let's just look at this from a very base perspective, and let's look at it from a very base situation. Let me give you 2 Premier League tables come the end of May. Let me give you 2 examples of what the Premier League table could look like. Example 1, Man United win the league, Liverpool finish 2nd, Arsenal finish 3rd, Man City finish 4th, Chelsea finish 5th, Tottenham finish 6th. Right, okay. That's example A. Example B, Villa win the league, Newcastle finish 2nd, Brighton finish 3rd, West Ham finish 4th, who else is? Fulham finish 5th, who else is in and around that a good side? Palace finished 6th. Brentford finished 7th. What example, A or B, earns the Premier League more money? What example has more eyes watching the Premier League the following season? What example is more of a selling point for the Premier League? A lot of people would think it'd be the one with Villa winning the league because it'd be a great example of how anybody can win it and how it can be competitive. It wouldn't be. Because as big of a football club as Aston Villa are and as good of a job as they're doing at the moment, they ain't nowhere near as big as Manchester United. As well as Newcastle are doing at the moment and as big as a club they ain't nowhere near as big as Liverpool. And their fan bases are nowhere near as global as what those two sides are. And that can be said for Chelsea, Brentford, it can be said for Arsenal and West Ham. It can be said for every one of those examples. And therefore, example A with Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, the big six finishing in the top 6, earns the Premier League more money, has the Premier League has more people watching the Premier League, has more people interested in the Premier League, and therefore means the Premier League can charge more to the likes of Sky Sports and BT Sports and whoever else to charge for them to broadcast their games. Now, people can talk about corruption, and it's not corrupt, and you're just saying that because it goes against Everton, and you're this, you're that, you're the other. There's not one businessman or woman on this planet that would prefer, if you give them two options, one makes a shitload of money and one makes a little bit of money. There's not one businessman or woman on the planet that would prefer the one that makes a little bit of money. We all know in business, we all know when there's money involved, integrity and sporting integrity and all of that goes out the window. It's all about how much money can be made and where it can be made. Football used to be for the match-going fan. It used to be for the match-going fan. It used to be 100% Max, I'd have to disagree there, mate, as every time we play Liverpool, we haven't had that full strength. I'm not talking about who would win the game. I'm talking about who has a bigger fan base. I'm talking about who earns more money. I'm talking about who brings more eyes to the Premier League. I'm not talking about who would win a game. Football is now not about the working class fan. It's now not about the match-going fan who saves up all his money of a week to go and watch his football club of a weekend. It's not about the fan that travels up and down the country watching their football club. It's about the fan sat at home on his couch watching on the telly. I've got no issue with people that can't get to games for whatever reason, or can't get to away games, or watch the games at home on Sky and other platforms. I've got no issue with that whatsoever. But it's quite clear now that this sport, especially this sport in this country, is geared now towards the fans sitting at home. They get to hear what the commentators are saying about VAR, because commentators get the VAR audio. Don't know why everybody else doesn't get the VAR audio. It should be broadcasted in the stadium, but it's not. So they get to know what's happening with the VAR situations before the match going fan. They get to see multiple replays of situations before the match going fan does. They get to sit in the comfort of their own home on a Tuesday night and watch their team play away from home, whereas the match going fan has got to travel the other arse end of the country and then get back in time for work the next morning, all for a price of 50 quid a ticket or whatever it might be. It's not geared towards the match-going fan anymore. It's geared towards the television watchers. And there's a reason for that as well, and that's because there's more money to be made there. Listen, I'm broken with it, as I've said before. And I'm finding myself now, and this is the saddest thing, by the way. I used to love going and watching Everton. I mean, 100% Mag says we have a much bigger fan base, mate, than Liverpool, as we have more diehard supporters and not tourist fans. That I hate Liverpool Football Club with every fibre of my body. and every fibre of my being, and I hate the majority of their fans, but that is the biggest nonsense statement I've ever heard in my life. Newcastle have got a big fan base, granted, the majority of whom come from Newcastle because it's a one-team city. If Liverpool only had one team in the city, Liverpool or Everton, whoever that team would be, would have over 150,000 every week. If Manchester only had one team in its city, they'd get 150,000 every week. Same with Birmingham. Yeah, you support your team and believe your team are going in the right direction, etc., etc. But that's madness. That's absolutely madness. But yeah, I mean, I'm just broken with it. I'm at this point now where, as I was just about to say, I used to love going to watch Everton Football Club. You know, if Everton ever played twice at Goodison in the space of a week, I'd be absolutely buzzing. I'd be made up. I'd be over the moon. I'd be absolutely, I'd wake up the day of the game and think, boss, we've got a night. I used to love night games at Goodison Park. Absolutely, boss, get in. Brilliant, this. I sat there last night when it was reported that this news was going to break today. I just remember thinking, I can't be arsed with Wednesday. And I'll be brutally honest with you, and if that makes me a bad Evertonian, or that makes me a terrible fan, or that means I should sell my ticket like some dickheads on Twitter are saying, the amount of dickheads on Twitter, if you don't like it, sell your ticket, and I'll have your ticket, lad, I'll go, stop cry-ass and stop moaning, fuck off. You obviously don't know what it means for this football club to mean that much to you. Do me a favour and fuck off, gobshites, mate. Anyway, I don't know if I want to go on Wednesday. That's how broken I feel. Because I don't enjoy it anymore. I don't enjoy when we score because you're always worried about whether it's going to get disallowed. I don't enjoy when we win a few games on the bounce because you're worried about whether or not we're going to get, referred to an independent commission for the financial breach. I don't enjoy when somebody makes a good challenge because you're thinking a VAR going to send them off for that. Everything about the game, the modern game in this day and age, is fucking horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And if football was like this when I was 6, 7 years old, I wouldn't be sat here now doing this video and owning this channel. I wouldn't. I'd have fucked it off a long, long time ago. A long time ago. And how horrible is it that a football club can be building a new stadium in order to increase its revenue, increase its match day experience, increase the amount of fans that can go and watch Everton at home, help the city of Liverpool regenerate an area, bringing in millions and millions of pounds to an area, more jobs, more money for people in a really difficult time under a really difficult government. Or for the Premier League to come and punish us for that and say that it isn't sustainable for us to do that. How is that fair? How? Tell me how that is fair. And now we're at the point where I'm seeing the new stadium and driving past it or walking past it, and other people who are not Evertonians are saying, look at that, look at how amazing that is, look at how great that is, it's brilliant, I love it. And I'm just thinking, I just wish it wasn't fucking there, to be honest. I just wish it wasn't there, because if it was, the facts of the matter are, and I'm not blaming the stadium, by the way, because Everton absolutely needed to build a new stadium, and I'm sure the new stadium will be absolutely fantastic, but the facts are, had we have not built that new stadium, we wouldn't be where we are today. We wouldn't be fighting 2 breaches. We wouldn't have been charged twice for the same thing, of which one of the charges we're in an appeal process for, and it's not, the appeal process hasn't even ended yet. So what happens if the appeal process comes back and says, yeah, Everton are right, they shouldn't have been deducted 10 points? What happens then? Does the second charge automatically get dropped? It's a flawed system, and for as poorly as Everton have been ran over the last few years, and we've been ran disgracefully over the last few years. There's no getting away from that whatsoever. But it just feels like no matter what you do, no matter how you ran, no matter what you discuss in terms of the mitigating circumstances, let's not forget Everton had a multi-million-pound sponsorship deal with a Russian company, the same way Chelsea have got. But we had to walk away from ours because of a war that we were pressured into walking away from because of the situation going on there. However, a few years later, Chelsea can go and get, a huge sponsorship from a Russian-backed company. Let's not forget, there was a global pandemic that happened whilst we were building a stadium, which had a huge effect on our finances. You add that all to the fact that we had a player who we were told we cannot use or play because of an ongoing situation. We then suspended them, paid them every week, suspended them, and then his contract ran out and he was moved on, all for them to be found not guilty, and we could have sold them. As well as the fact that we complied with the Premier League and we held the Premier League's hand for years and made sure that we didn't spend any money, spending £1.5 million in the summer and barely staying up. We sold our best players every year to try and comply, selling players just to try and comply, like Alex Iwobi, who was sold purely to try and make sure that we fit within those regulations, and yet still we're being punished twice for the same thing. I don't know how long this can continue for me. I really don't. And maybe Everton being relegated to the Championship and having to start again and selling a couple of players and having to rebuild there and not working under a league with such clear corruption and not having to play with VAR and with nonsense refereeing decisions every week. Maybe I'll start to enjoy football much more at that point. And if that's the case, then I'll happily come on here and say I don't want us to be promoted if that happens. But as I said, there is a large chance that if we are to be relegated, then it will have huge impacts on the future of the football club, and that is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. As Saibo says, the rules are there to protect clubs from themselves. This will benefit Everton in the long run. No, they're not. I actually thought he was going to say the rules are there to protect clubs from to protect the big six from everybody else, but he didn't say that. So whatever you've said there, Saibo, is wrong. It won't benefit Everton in the long run, because what it's actually trying to do is destroy Everton Football Club. And whilst their rules are for sustainability and fair play, in implementing those rules, they're actually destroying a football club. Yeah. I've not got much more to say, to be honest. There's nothing more that has been released about it. The latest we've heard is the statement from the football club and the fact that obviously they're saying that they don't understand how they can be in breach of the same thing that they've already been found guilty being in breach for. But yeah. What do we do now? We wait and see. I think the last independent commission took 4 weeks, so by this time next month, middle of February, we should have found out what the punishment will be, if any. And it is at the Premier League's discretion, by the way, so the Premier League very well may turn around and go, well, they've already been punished, so we're not going to punish them again. But again, this is the Premier League, and for me, I think they'll want to make an example out of Everton, and they'll want to get it all done before they change the rules in August, and it won't happen again. Ever again, by the way. I suppose the one slight positive in terms of this situation is that Nottingham Forest have also been found guilty of being in breach of a P&S rule, and they have also been referred to an independent commission, so if they get the same punishment as what we get, they'll obviously be dragged into it as well. So, it gives us more of a chance of staying up, I suppose. But like I said, at the moment for me, I'm struggling with it. I really am struggling with it. But There you go. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below. If you've enjoyed it, please leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. That'd mean a huge, huge amount to me. We'll be back shortly with the game review to yesterday's draw against Villa, so look out for that one. But until then, big thanks for watching. See you after. Oh, hang on. Forgot to do the outro. See you after.